Hey, I'm here today with Liliana Baylon. I'm interviewing just up-and-comers in the therapy field, and particularly here in Colorado. And Liliana and I go back, I don't know, 6, 7 years. Um, our wonderful discussions during core skills training and emotionally focused therapy about how do you adapt this attachment-based emotional focused model with across cultures and cultural adaptations, which you have gone, you did amazing 3-hour training on this, and that people are really excited about. Just as way of introduction, Liliana, who's humble, so I'll brag for her. She's somebody that goes out and gets the knowledge. You go get the skills and the knowledge, and this has resulted in she is an EMDR approved consultant. She's a registered play therapist supervisor and a synergetic play therapy supervisor, so a particular approach in play therapy, and an American Association for Marriage and Family Therapy, or LMFT approved supervisor. And you are working on and will be an EFT certified therapist soon. I think you would have been one a year or two ago, but you are also a juggler, I think.
I am.
You're a juggler. So in thinking about that, I'm wondering what ties all those things together for you? EMDR, play therapy, synergetic play therapy, marriage and family therapy. Would you share a little bit? Yeah.
So it will be family systems and attachment, right? I knew when I was in my master's program that I wanted to work with families. And I knew that if I was going to work with children, and that was my thought at the beginning, that I needed to know and understand attachment, especially when I was born in a different culture and then coming to the US and then seeing attachment in a different lens. So the short answer is family systems and attachment. So even my EMDR, I did that regular foundation, but then after that, I make sure that any training that I took was attachment based.
Okay, so you got the foundation, but you keep sort of attachifying it or bringing it back to attachment. You said something interesting. You said seeing attachment through different cultural lens or something. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So I realized all of us, anytime that we're taking EFT trainings, obviously things come up for all of us, right? From our attachment lens.
Let's do EFT training real quick, because therapists, all sorts of therapists may be listening to this. So Liliana's referring to emotionally focused therapy. That's a gift mostly from Sue Johnson, the originator. Attachment-based, emotionally driven way of working with couples that we're now expanding to family and individuals. So please keep going. That's what you mean by EFT.
Yeah. So I realized that my attachment lens was completely different than when I was studying. So I felt confused and sad because it was not the same. So some of our discussions that I have had with others is that when I did my externship, which I did it with you, I will go home crying because I was like trying to organize everything that I was learning and then compare it to my attachment with my family. And what I was hearing is that my attachment lens, my upbringing was not okay. So part of my work has been, how does attachment—
What was not okay about it? What was the message you were receiving?
So my family was not, based on the categories and based on on what I was learning at that point, was that it needed to be secure, that it needed to be spoken in a certain way, that it needed to show in a certain way. And that was not my family language. So then part of my journey has been, what does attachment look like in different cultures? And then if I am working with the EFT lens, how can I link this information to their cultures, to their attachment, so that they understand that there was nothing wrong with what their parents knew or show. It's just that we are talking and learning and longing something different now. What would that look like now?
will you say what attached for a concrete example? Because I think it's really important to look for, yeah, and I'm gonna, as we speak attachment, we're gonna tend to speak from our experience. We're all sort of ethnocentric at heart, kind of egocentric at heart. Depends what level you're looking at it. What did attachment look like in your family? Can you give a few examples that maybe like a United Statesian dominant culture therapist might not see in their office, right? They'd miss it. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. So like I understood that the way that, like, for example, my grandma, which I grew up with my grandma being my mom, and I called her mom, right? Mama Munda. The way that she showed attachment to me was by having coffee together in the mornings. That was her way of connecting with me. If I had a bad day or someone hurt my feelings, her way not only was the coming out and defending me, but the way that for her show me attachment in that moment was making a hot chocolate and having a pastry and then coming together.
Right.
So she couldn't hug me. She couldn't say she loved me. She couldn't say everything was going to be okay. However, she can just sit next to me and share a beverage.
Right. So that she'd be there in the warmth of the beverage, the warmth of her presence, the certainty and sort of predictability that if I'm distressed in some way, she comes towards me. She doesn't leave me alone in it. But maybe I don't have all these sort of Anglo words. They seem to like talk about it a lot, and I'm feeling bad because, grandma never, hugged me and said, I love you. But wait a minute, then you start, wait, there's something off about this. This was real. This was palpable and solid. And okay.
Yeah. So then I will use my mom. My mom, which was raised by my grandma, didn't have that lens either. Didn't have that language either. So her way of showing me attachment was by providing a roof, by providing clothing, by making sure that she was working. And she would let me know, I am working, I'm providing food for you. Which that was her way of saying, I'm here, I'm showing up. But I couldn't see that as a child, and I couldn't see that as an adult. I had to do my own work in order to make that link.
Yeah, I like that because it makes me think about and thinking about this cross-culturally and what's similar in cultures, that how many times I'm working with a couple or family to say, it seems to me how hard you're working, or that you're always the first up and you make sure like everything's ready in the home before anybody else gets up, or you're the one who thinks about this or that I would rather look for all the signs of attachment and connection than focus on all the, it has to be very specific. And that's been growth on my part. And I think it's in no small part from like talking and working with lots of families and lots of cultures and stuff so that I don't get caught in my do it the way I do it. Yeah.
And I think that's what is happening, right? In the last couple of years, when we're talking about, yes, attachment is universal. Yes, attachment is needed. We all want to belong. We all want to feel love, secure, comfort. It's just that it looks different across cultures. And how can we make that link for them so that they don't feel bad or shame because their family was not using the white lens. Right.
And I always think what happens is that the white lens rhymes with the right lens. I'm in a white dominant culture, white trainers, my white helper in the role play was I'm learning a model, etc. And it's kind of like I have to stop, and there's an extra work that you had to do.
Yeah.
You had to stop and go, and it's kind of an injury. Like, wait a minute, what are they saying about my family? Is my family bad and that family good? Oh, no, there's all sorts of ways to say I love you.
Yeah.
All sorts of ways to show I care about you. There's all sorts of ways. And it could be the simplest, my wife tells a story about her father who was very Air Force. There's a culture. Yeah. Military culture, Air Force, not very soft or emotionally expressive. And she's, 17 years old, and she said how much she likes this particular perfume. And he comes home 2 days after her birthday from deployment and tosses the perfume on the bed and said, "Here, I remembered you liked that," and walks away. And she's like, that was his attachment behavior. That was
Yeah.
big for him.
Yes.
And
Right.
as therapists to go towards that and tell me the meaning of that. What's the meaning to you, Liliana's mom? What motivated you to work so hard for her and her siblings?
Mm.
They're important. They matter. I wanted them to be okay. I wanted them to be safe. I wanted them to be taken care of.
Yeah.
Oh, attachment.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yours, at heart, it's all tied together by, sounds like bonds of the heart.
Yes.
Then with EMDR, you're working with trauma that gets in the way of that connection. Is that?
So, and mainly what I've been focusing in, of course, with the EMDR, I'm looking at all kinds of trauma, but lately what I've been seeing is, generational trauma. Especially when I'm seeing a lot of kids who are kids of first generation immigrants, right? Living in two different worlds. And what does that mean? Where do I belong? If I and identify a lot, and I have been very transparent with everyone in regards to, like, I'm a first generation coming to the US. I was 16 when I came to the US. So I knew my mom loved me, and I knew my mom was coming to the US to have a better life for me. But it was very confusing, not only attachment and education and language, but also how, when you are a teenager and you go into school, how you are forced to assimilate, forget your language, forget everything that you know in order to belong, in order to be accepted, in order to talk this way, dress this way, so on and so forth. So you lose your identity.
Yeah. And even there's some things as concrete as don't speak Spanish in the home, so you develop a more American accent and things like that, and put in weird, I have to translate for my mom, which gives me some weird power differential responsibility I didn't ask for. And I notice that I look different and sound different, and I don't know what to do with that, because maybe overtly the culture's trying to say welcome, but that's not yeah. So it's a lot to be a first generation immigrant.
Yeah, and trying to make sense, right? Where do you belong? What does attachment look like? Are you okay with your family? And then, which I talk a lot about with families in regards to, you come to this country to give a better life to your children, but we don't have a template for that life. So then when our children are doing something different, we reject them because it's different.
Or maybe scary.
Mhm.
I don't
It is.
understand why you're being more this than we would be in Mexico. I
Yeah.
don't know. I want to stop that. I don't understand it.
Yeah. So then they struggle with that part, and then children are caught up in this trap of, I have to speak like you, eat like you, be like you, yet I have to be something else in order to survive in this country. So that was very confusing. And I shared that, and I have had that conversations with other colleagues, because it took me years to make sense of that. And that came back to my attachment lens. It came back to, who am I? Where do I belong? Who will care for me, who's actually seeing me and accepting me for who I am versus what I look like or what I sound like, right? And then, like, what else can I do in order to be okay in both worlds? So I always, and I have this conversation with colleagues in regards to, I never felt Mexican enough and I never felt American enough, no matter what I did.
Right. I let down somewhere. I'm falling short.
Yes.
The Mexican community that I want to so much belong to is, you're getting too Americanized.
That's
American
exactly.
community keeps reminding me you're a bit too Mexican.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, where do I belong? And I want to belong in both places. I want to belong where I am. And I want to be known in all my diversity, including parts of me that maybe go beyond and beneath Mexican and American in these things. It's my Liliana nature.
Right. So that's part of the identity.
Right.
Right. So I'm having conversations with colleagues in regards to, when you come to the US, you're being told either you're Latina or Hispanic, which
Oh,
doesn't complicate it enough. right?
Do those resonate with you?
That was very confusing to me because I was like, but I'm Mexican. What does that mean? And unfortunately, any government paperwork that you do, you only have those two options, right? Or other. And what does that mean?
Right.
So then I was like, okay, I'm a Latina. And then now we're working with Latinx in order to be inclusive. But what I discovered, especially in the last year, doing so much work, anti-racism work, I realized that no, I'm not Latina, I am Mexican.
Yeah.
Right? This is who I am. These are my
And
roots.
can I say, and it's my, language, or I just had this like rush and flood as your colleague and friend and care, of like, oh, good for you.
Yeah.
That just sounds so grounding.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah, I'm Mexican.
Yeah.
I mean, it
Right.
may not be on a form, and it may upset someone over here that's fighting for this or that, but that's who I am.
Yeah. And I think the power is of knowing who you are, right? So I know I am Mexican. I know I'm Liliana Baylon. I know I'm a woman. I know I'm a first generation immigrant. And I know that it's complicated to put all those things in a box. And at the end of the day, the reason why I have done all these trainings and become a supervisor in all these trainings is because I think attachment is really important. That helps you be grounded. That helps you understand your history, your story. That helps you be connected to others because you know who you are. It's not confusing. It's not dysregulating, trying to find out where do you belong. And is it okay if I sit here next to you? Is it okay if I cannot pronounce a word, which I was going to say, for crying out loud, I'm 45 and I still struggle with English. So I just use humor now. Like there's times that I cannot pronounce something and that's okay because every day I speak two languages.
Yeah.
Every day I have to be switching. And I share with you that in my sessions with couples and not with families, I have to translate in the middle of. So not only I'm doing English, I'm doing Spanish, I'm doing Spanglish. And a lot of times I have to stop and then just help others in the session.
Yeah, and that's an extra load, an extra mental load, emotional load, and a gift in some ways, right? Because you get to, there's things that can be expressed in Spanish differently in English. It's a small adaptation I've made, but have found, and I will get bilingual couples, and I don't speak Spanish, maybe, or French, or Vietnamese or something, and I'll see someone struggling and I'll say, will you do something for me? Say it in Spanish first.
Yeah.
Just go back to your native language and say it. And you can see the relief on their face, and they just say it. Okay, now I can try to translate it. Or if the couple is primarily Spanish speaking and, her original language, first language, go ahead, talk to each other for 5 minutes about this. You don't need to get out of the way. But I think when you're a bilingual therapist like that, that is a burden to have to, it's an extra responsibility.
So it's a responsibility, not necessarily, I don't feel like it's a burden, it's a gift, right? The gift that I have and I can give, and being first generation and understanding, other cultures, that is a gift to me. And then a gift that I can share because I understand what it's like. Not knowing, I understand what it's like having that work ethic. I understand what it's like having a different lens in regards to attachment. So therefore, I'm able to normalize it, validate it, and link. I'm constantly validating
and linking.
Yeah.
Linking meaning, so for someone who's not an attachment sort of focused trained person, or what you're linking, sort of unpack link. That word's a big word for you. You say it a lot, so I want to know more about it. I'm interested.
So I'm constantly linking metaphors. I'm constantly linking stories. I'm constantly linking narratives. I'm constantly linking, what happened in their disagreements, what happened in the difference of upbringing. I'm constantly linking so that they understand that what I'm doing, what I'm thinking, and what I'm doing has a purpose. Not understand it. However, at the end of the day, my behavior is trying to connect with you. My behavior is trying to belong to this family. My behavior is to provide. My behavior is so that I can get closer to you.
Yeah. You're looking at the core, what's driving it is this core need for connection, belonging, acceptance. I think of it sometimes the ABCs. I want to know I'm accepted, that I belong, and that I can care and be cared for.
Yes.
And then, and the more that it's, I'm accepted as me, I belong as me, I can care for you, I get to really know you,
Mm-hmm.
and these things. And you're linking that. I love the language about linking that. Maybe you'll do me the honor when you're helping at the externship in June of talking about linkage at some point. That would be, it's a wonderful way of, and linking has a, attachment links us. So it's
Yes.
got more than one meaning, I think, when you talk about linking. And it's fascinating what you're saying about first generation immigrants and the, if you go read the research on that experience, the things that you're saying, they're unique to you. And there's a very universal quality that I think therapists, it's like one of those things to kind of be looking for. Is there someone in this room that's a first generation immigrant? Or is there somebody who's a child of first generation immigrants, where like the messages about the need for an education that'll allow you to belong and succeed are different perhaps than, the assumption that you'll go to college because the last 7 generations have gone to college. And it's, I'm the child of a first generation immigrant. And it wasn't until later in life that I could look back at my mom, who came from Scotland, who was the child of first generation immigrants, Lithuanian parents who fled oppression, come to Scotland and are outliers. I have a child who just starts to maybe feel like they belong in Scotland, who's now in Canada, who comes to the United States. And these are really real factors for people
Yeah.
when you don't know, because we want an attachment with the larger community and culture.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, I'm going from American to Mexican and back, disappointing people. And yet you've turned it into something very vibrant and alive and empowering and energizing. I just feel your passion for it. Like there must be something nice about having this theme that kind of ties through everything you're doing.
And I think it didn't hit me, right? Because people keep asking me, why so many trainings? Why are you doing, like, when are you going to stop? And I'll be like, what is it about? And part of it is, you're absolutely right. Part of it is the need for education. Since I was a child in Mexico, I remember my grandma telling me I had to learn how to write. I had to learn how to read. I had to learn how to do all these things. So they were pushing me to be the first one. Not that others didn't. But for example, my mom only went to school until 2nd grade, and then she was put out. Right? So there was a need for me to be educated and break that cycle. So when I came to the US, well, there was an opportunity. I can go to school because Mexico is really expensive. Not that it's not here in the US, but meaning like even in elementary school, you have to pay for it. You have to pay for school. You have to pay for books. You have to pay for uniforms. You have to pay for lunch. You have to pay for everything. So a lot of families cannot afford to send their children.
I did not realize that. Okay. Wow.
To school. So once I came to the US, I was like, wait, I can go to school.
Okay, look at that big smile. Yeah, I can do what grandma said.
Yes, right. So I haven't stopped. So what people don't know is that I have a master's in business administration, and then I have the master's in counseling. So I have two masters in my belt.
Wow.
And of course, plus all other certifications. And part of it is because of my eagerness of learn, right?
Yes.
I have to keep learning. I have to know better in order to help better my community. I cannot get stuck knowing that I am Mexican and therefore I know. I'm an immigrant, therefore that I know. There's no such thing, especially myself, that I work with people from all over, not just Mexico. So I have people from Venezuela, Argentina, Colombia, Honduras, Guatemala, like name it. I have seen it in my office. So I never make assumptions. I have to be asking questions about, and name it. Something that we have in common is the Spanish language. However, our vocabulary is different. So let me learn from you.
Right.
Right.
It's like you have it's a curiosity, and there's an opportunity, and maybe I know something about Colombia that might help me attend to something and be interested in it, but don't make assumptions that that's true for this person, this couple, this family. And I want to go back to your grandma, if it's okay.
Sure.
I'm struck by that. That was an attachment behavior, right? Her saying to you, get an education, get an education, get an education was an attachment behavior, and one that felt very secure to you.
That
Right?
at that point I couldn't understand, right? At that point I was like, why do I have to do this?
It was
Why
some
can't I-
part of you knew.
Yeah.
You smile so you beam talking about your grandmother, so it's like maybe like the the young kid brain and the adolescent brain's going, really, I have to keep learning, but inside maybe your limbic emotional brain was taking in the caring. She's telling me this because I matter to her. Is that kind of what you mean by it's an attachment behavior? It's like an attachment expression. It's
It is.
communication of.
Yeah. It is, right? Like she wanted to break those gender roles. She wanted me to have opportunities that she didn't have. And she had no way of describing this to me at that time. So the only thing she can do is sitting next to me, making sure that I was doing my homework and pushing me to do better. And I smile about her because she's my attachment figure. Anytime that I struggle, right? You mentioned in your externship that you asked the question, who brings you milk and cookies? And I never forgot that phrase. And for me, it was like, it's not milk and cookies, but it's my grandma, it's her scent. She's been dead for 29 years this year. Actually, Monday will be the anniversary of her passing. And she's been dead for 29 years, yet she's my attachment figure. When I need someone, when I need help, when I need advice, when I'm afraid, when you name it, she's the person that I evoke. She's the person that I think of, right? And then there's this smile because I know she's with me.
You get me crying. My grandma, my nana was that's who. Yeah, and then you named another attachment behavior or expression was she sat next to me and made sure I did my homework, and then she's sitting next to me so I could smell her scent, and there's a closeness we had, right? As she keep me going, keep me studying, keep me going, and now she's still inside me, and I love this about you, and I remember this. From core skills. I think at the externship we had maybe 3 conversations because there's 60 people. Core skills there's like 16 people, and I think we talked every third break, about something, and it was you are so naturally curious about people and connection, and I really, really enjoy hearing you talk about it because you're coming from that place of curiosity. And what's the opportunity here? The similarities have an opportunity for us to, but the differences and stuff are also, there's something meaningful if I find out how is it different to be here from Honduras than Argentina, than Chile, and southern Mexico,
Yes.
Mexico City, to be a first generation immigrant, a second generation. What's it like to be maybe where you got, there was a small Honduras community you grew up in, and so you went to the white dominated school back to community is different than there wasn't a place to go back to. This is the kind of stuff I think you live in, that elegant matrix of all the different levels of connection. And I think of you as like, you're like a connection detective or finder or uncoverer. You're always looking for where the connection is. And I think it's powerful.
Thank you. I didn't think about, what was I doing in those roles? And I do remember our conversations because usually like you were trying to clean up and then it was just me asking you, like, so how do I integrate this? Because if I go straight forward and if I ask, like with my couples, would you please share? that was not going to happen.
I remember that one. Yeah, we talked about that one like 5 times.
Yes, while you were trying to get ready and close up to go to Patrice, I would be like, no, Jim. Like, how do I do this? Because I knew that I love EFT. I love attachment, but I knew that I couldn't go straight forward. I knew that if I go and lean in and speak soft, that was not going to work well right away.
Right.
I knew that I needed to come in a different way. So I needed at that time with you and core skills, I was like, how do I integrate this? Yeah. If I believe in it, if I'm doing the work, how am I going to do it with my clients?
Yeah. And you look at you're finding the ways, right? Like, and I think maybe for therapists, I say it all the time to people, like, there's cross-cultural things happening all the time. Even if you think, boy, you look like me or similar age, we, maybe, English is a second language for both of us, or English is our first language, or we both, love French and speak that, and that maybe it's something like, oh, you lived in a military culture for 30 years and I didn't. And how did that shape your experience? I'm married to a military brat, and Patrice moved 14 schools before high school.
Wow.
And then landed in Bitburg, Germany, which was the gift. She got to, the one place. And learning, when I come home once, we've lived in our house for like 3 years and 8 months or something, and she comes home and says, we need to move. And I'm like, why? I don't understand why I have to move, And then later she's reading this book about growing up in a military culture, moving all the time, and figured out it was the longest she'd lived in one place by 3 days. 3 days. And something in her was saying, and so to look all the time, and where can I understand you, that the difference can be an opportunity, because I can show my genuine curiosity. And then if I step in it, I say something, I hurt, I miss it, enough trust that a person can come and say, and I know for me personally, that you would come to me as an Anglo or Caucasian or white trainer and be so like, you're helping me with this. You're helping me with this. I'm going to pick your heart and brain until you give me something useful. And you're not going home until. I love that. And that's what I mean about you. That's where I started to learn right away. Big heart, very curious, strong mind. And this is what I think makes you an up-and-comer. When I think, where is Liliana going to be in 10, 20 years? And how many people and communities you're going to impact? Do you have a vision where you want to be in like 5 years or 10 years? Or do you kind of just in it right now for maybe there's therapists that say, I want to be like her. I want to have those certificates and cross, pollinate ideas and impact so many systems. Do you have
I thought that they're looking like, look, Liliana, I don't want to be exhausted and have those dark circles. Because something that I'm very aware, especially since last year, is that I have not stopped, especially since getting my master's in counseling. Like, I was doing my master's in counseling and I was taking play therapy courses during the weekend.
Right.
And, so on. So I think what I realized is that I'm exhausted. I'm eager to learn, but I'm also tired. So I'm also trying to be present, right? So I've been discussing with you and with other people here in the community that, yes, I want to become EFT certified, and I'm working, like this month, I'll send my stuff. I have people helping me already with that. So I do want to say, like, thanks to Emilia, who it's reaching out through Facebook and helping me with language. Joe, who's giving me names in order for people to transcribe my videos. But 5 years from now, I'm picturing slowing down, like sharing, doing consultations, doing presentations, because I have so much to share, so much to say. But hopefully not this fast pace that I've been doing since 2012. Hopefully in a more present, slow, kind of like what we talk EFT, right? Slow down. I'm not in a hurry. Someone even shared with me, well, several people have shared with me how I talk fast. And it dawned on me that I talk fast because I have so much to say. And I feel like there's this hurt, like pay attention, like, let me give it to you before
You
you're
do
moving.
have a lot to say. I will say this, like, our time's coming to close soon, but I'm like already like, oh God, gosh, I hope we get to talk again, and maybe, and I am so glad that we're able to record your thoughts. You have a lot to say, and you have a very clear, strong, and passionate voice, and it's very engaging. And I wish this for you, the presence and the slowing down. I guess if I were to talk either, I don't know if this is a generational age thing or cross culture something, but my wish for you is I think you'll slow down inside, but you'll be busier than ever in 5 years, because the more you speak this way, the more people are going to want to hear from you.
Mhm.
And there's this opportunity and responsibility that'll come. I can feel it in you that if people want to hear my voice, and it's going to help my community and help communities, and help us move to a more, anti-racist, beyond racism, to something more whole and good for everyone. Right? Because racism hurts all of us.
Yes.
It hurts the people in the dominant group. It hurts all of us, because it keeps us, if, at the most basic level, it keeps us from knowing and sharing and being with. And then we could go into the sociological, emotional, that's a whole, you know so much about that. I just am so glad that you talked. I think the world of you. I'm really grateful that you're going to help with the externship. And just in case it's June 1st through 4th. You're doing it with James Hawkins, Doc Hawk. And if you want to sign up, you could go to coloradoeft.com. That's Colorado, and then EFT is for emotionally focused therapy.com, and find it under center events. If they want to contact you, so if somebody says, I want you to come talk to my group or something, and you'll have to tell them it'll be in 2 years. You're so busy. How would somebody find you? Like, what's your website?
So my website is my name, www.lilianabaylon.com. I made it really simple for people
And
to
it's
find.
it's 3 L's in Liliana, right? Lill? No.
It's just one L. So it's LILIANABAYLON.com.
Okay, good. And are you taking clients? Or are you too busy?
So yeah, I'm not taking clients right now. My case is full.
Okay. So but if you want to reach out to her you want some resources, something to help you in your journey as a therapist, um, uh, you're a great resource. So thank you for this time. It's been a pleasure, and I am just, you know what? So grateful.